Hey, JulesBlessedVegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. So we're on day 10 of overcoming fear. It's my own personal journey of trying to just reflect, investigate, let go of. So for today, by Overeaters Anonymous, is a daily thought book, and this is page 299, and it's day 10 from the index, which had 10 focuses on fear. You can go to the index for everything from joy to health to love to, of course, abstinence, all the things. But anyway, I chose fear. So let's get into it, my friends, shall we? I would love it. So this is so interesting. It reads, better hazard once than always be in fear. Are you familiar? Better hazard once? That's by Thomas Fuller. I know it's going to be opening up for us to understand a little better, and I definitely need it, because better hazard once? Hazard suggests me taking a risk, right? So better to hazard once or maybe take a risk. My fears are just below the surface. I'm not aware that much of my fear is of looking ridiculous or finding out I'm not too bright or that I'm narrow and self-minded underneath my civilized veneer. Okay, my fears are just below the surface. I am not aware that much of my fear. Oh, I read that wrong. I emphasized it wrong. I'm not aware that much of my fear, okay? That much of my fear is of looking ridiculous or finding out that I'm not too bright or that I'm narrow and small-minded underneath my civilized veneer. I gotta think about that a second. I don't think I'm afraid of looking ridiculous, hence the reason I do these videos. It's a risk I'm willing to take. Finding out that I'm not too bright, information comes really easy to me. That I'm small-minded, I have absolutely tripped over beliefs that I didn't even know were a problem. And they most certainly were. So I'm definitely, I can understand that, but let's keep going. But it's better to jump in and examine my fears than to let them haunt me for the rest of my life. Now, I totally understand that. I absolutely understand that, which is sort of why I've been doing this, to take a moment to say, what is this? And to bring them into the light and say, are these valid? Are these concerns I have even valid? So you jump in and examine your fears instead of letting them haunt you for the rest of your life. I get that. I take a 4th step inventory, and again, this is Overeaters Anonymous, so it's referencing AA, and the 4th step inventory, and there's a ton. You don't have to be in the 12-step program to do them. You can go online and literally just say 4th step inventory, and they just have these lists of you just going through your life. Of course, depending on the focus, and in this case, it's Overeaters Anonymous, it'll guide you to see how has food affected your life. And this is not just for heavyweight champs. I assure you. It's also for people who have manipulated food through bulimia, through anorexia, scarcity, too much, hoarding, throwing away, all the things. It's what is the issue with food? And how has it affected your life? In my situation, I told you, my tendency is to lie about it, to hide it, to misspend the money, just to be very irresponsible. Food has never been very safe for me because it's had so many consequences. So that 4-step inventory has a ton of really good questions to say, have my actions with food had extenuating consequences that need to be recognized or dealt with? So the 4-step inventory allows you to skim the surface at first and then dig even deeper. The more honest I am, the more freely I breathe, which I welcome a lot. This is what I feared. I want to shout to the world, don't be afraid. I love that idea. I'm sneezing, people. One moment, please. Okay, anyway, I am not allergic to this topic. I never know what quite gets me. But I live in the desert and the windows and doors aren't perfectly sealed. I can give it that. Okay, so I do understand that. I'm one of those people where when I'm afraid, well, first of all, as a prayer person, I always say, I plead the blood of Jesus Christ. One, I mean, if I was in a court of law in any realm to plead innocence, guilt, plead the blood of Jesus Christ, like he already laid it at the foot of the cross, and therefore I am protected. That is always one. And also, of course, the shortest prayer and the most effective ever, because good and evil cannot exist at the same time, is Jesus, come quickly. So those two help me so much. But if I'm literally afraid, I am such a rebel. I will open every door. I will open every curtain. I will just say, forget you. Like, I am not going to hide in a corner in fear. I will bust open every single thing in this house and just say, what are you going to do? I don't know how smart it is, but I just can't stand the idea of being trapped in fear. I can't stand it. So I understand that idea of freedom. When you finally look at something, to me, there's no more power, no greater power than to be able to say it first. That's why I love it. Like when megastars in Hollywood, I just go, you know what? Here's my story. I had an affair. I, stole something from the set. I crashed under the influence, like whatever it is, but they say it quickly. So that all of those predators who want to hold it against them and try and blackmail them and everything can't. They just pull the rug out from under them and say, I don't care. Well, that's where I am, like halfway of my life, right? No one should have power over me at this point in my life. And I like to be able to shout my flaws from the rooftop so that nobody can hold anything over me. And when I understand that I'm only really accountable to God, I do give my power away to humans for sure, but I'm really just accountable to God. There's a lot of freedom in that, for sure. A lot of freedom in that. And it's unfortunate. Whenever I'm trying to hold up an image that isn't true for me, there's no greater burden, right? Ever than trying to hide. Like, even right now, I'm just like, I can't be a poser. I got off my plan. I'm struggling with food. I have a fear-based mentality right now. I mean, all of that's true for me. People could shut me down all day. They could say, Jules, let it go. Jules, forget about it. Jules, it's my truth right now, and I have to say it because, again, hiding in plain sight, let's be fair, because whenever I'm at my heaviest, even at 330, even at 280, whenever I'm at my heaviest, I'm hiding, but in plain sight, meaning I'm not in touch with my body, I'm not being accountable, I'm only looking kind of like social media in a way, only this much of myself in a mirror and not seeing the bigger picture until I come to, which again I kind of recently did, and it's just a way for me to be hiding from my life. And I could pretend everything's fine, but it's not. It's not. I'm really going through something. And I yesterday, and I don't know if you even follow me, but I have a nephew named Dean who sadly OD'd. It'll be 2 years in February on Super Bowl Sunday. He went into a coma from there. He has regained his speech to a degree. Sadly, they don't work with him at all. They don't do any physical therapy with him. They don't do any voice therapy. They don't work his lungs so that he has strength while he's lying in bed. I mean, all of that is so tragic. So it's very difficult, but I know God has a plan for him. But my point is that in what was going on with Dean, when I visited the other day, there was a spirit of oppression. There was some demonic something going on. And I'm just going to be straight up with you because it freaked me out. Dean is so kind and so sweet and everything. And while we were speaking, he just mid-sentence was yelling out, why are you in my face? Why are you in my face? And I'm like, dude, who's in your face? It's Auntie Julie. Like, we're just here. Or help, 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 like that whole thing. But what I didn't say, and this was the devil part, because I was directly praying over Dean, and I am a prayer person. Okay, I'm a prayer warrior. I'm a God person. I was absolutely praying over my nephew. And first he kept saying he could smell something. And I'm like, it's not my breath. It's not my breath. I don't have on perfume. As far as I can tell, nothing's changed in the room. He kept saying that there was a smell and it was like a burning smell. Well, for me, that is the devil straight up. Like that is some stupid spirit present. So from in my face to help to I'm smelling something. And then, what else? He said something else that made me just go, wow. Of course, help. Okay, but anyway, as I'm totally engaged in praying, he says, are you ready? Like, this is you're going to have to hold on. I know it's too much information, but there's a reason I'm saying it. All of a sudden, he says, can I say it? I don't want to violate you guys by saying it. I'm going to have to let it go. I was going to say it, but I'm not going to. Let me just tell you that it was something sexual and completely, sorry, I ran out of, I have to throw this away, just one moment. Something sexual, super inappropriate. Hi, I'm Aunt Julie. But what I knew in the moment was it wasn't Dean talking to his aunt. Okay, it was this devil challenging me in my purity in prayer. And me just shy of slapping my nephew before I pulled back and realized it had very little to do with this post-coma kid. I was just thinking, wow, I'm not going to go into detail because, again, I don't want, like, you can't undo what you've heard. And I tend to describe things really well, and I'm not going to do that for you to spare you. But I was just thinking, right here where it just says, when I left, I wasn't going to tell my husband what my nephew said because I was so afraid he was going to either condemn Dean or not want me to be there or your nephew, what? But it was so clear to me it wasn't my nephew. It was so clear to me. But in not disclosing that to my husband, I was buying into the game. I was taking on shame that did not belong to me. And so I had to tell my husband, and I was glad that I did because we had a chance to process it and kind of just decide what next steps would be. But that's kind of what that 4-step is. Like, you go into this inventory and you can do 4 steps again and again. I'm just in the middle of mine right now because obviously where I was in my last 4-step is not where I am now. And since I've come back to abusing food in the way that I have, to the extent that I have, it's worth engaging again to see like what is the new mindset in my current self. So it's just a chance to go a little deeper in having an understanding of why one is responding to life the way that they are at this time. And so I was so glad that I just told my husband and separated myself from what I was accidentally taking on as shame. So I don't know if that makes sense to you guys or not, but yeah, it's like freedom is knowing that nobody has power over your story. That your story is just your truth, and if they can't handle it, they can unsubscribe to your life. I mean, I don't know if that's true for your family members, but I mean, at some point, when Jesus proclaimed, Mary, here's your son to John, and John, here's your mother, he basically gave us permission to create our family far beyond the belly button family that we were raised with, right? So we never have to feel like we're orphaned. We can always create that family, and I appreciate that so much. So for today, this is how it always ends. I'm not afraid to take the next step. Everyone I know who took the 4th and 5th steps lived to tell about it. Oh my gosh, so true. So that's what I was going to say. After you go into depth of all the things, step 5 is to release the burden by giving it away to somebody else. And God bless the person who listens. People often go to a priest because they're really good at hearing everybody's stuff and not taking it on their person. But yeah, you actually say it out loud to just release it. And Lord knows, and I'm not making you guys into my sponsor, but I certainly share my truth on JBV often. But still, it's a really worthy process. So let's go back. Day 10, overcoming fear, ready to let it go, ready to get on with the steps to let it go. Better hazard once than always be in fear. Thomas Fuller. My fears are just below the surface. I am not aware that much of my fear is of looking ridiculous or finding out I'm not too bright. or that I'm narrow and small-minded underneath my civilized veneer. But it's better to jump in and examine my fears than to let them haunt me for the rest of my life. I take a 4-step inventory, skimming the surface at first, then digging deeper. The more honest I am, the more freely I breathe. This is what I feared. I want to shout to the world, don't be afraid. For today, I'm not afraid to take the next step. Everyone I know who took the 4th and 5th steps lived to tell about it. I hope that's true. I hope that's true. I fear that some people did not live to tell about that 4th and 5th step. Either they didn't complete it or they panicked over the shame. I think the reason God's so merciful when people commit suicide, and I do not recommend it. It's my understanding that it's a permanent act. But I think the reason he's so compassionate and understanding is because he knows what the deficit was in that person not being able to do their life. He also knows when the person, again, is so shame-based. And even though there's a slight arrogance in that, he's so compassionate. He knows the backstory. So when someone commits suicide, I never have an opinion on that. I only pray. I only have a ton of prayer for that. The only true sin is against the Holy Spirit. And really what that is not believing that God is big enough to handle or forgive whatever acts we've done on this planet. And that's just sheer arrogance, right? It's total arrogance. So I always pray for the grace to be honest enough to say, I blew it, and I don't know what that means to you, but I need to be free of the burden of that by just admitting it in real time. And in some ways, if you're a 12-stepper, that's really step 10. After you've done 4 and 5 and then you work your way through the others, step 10 is literally taking a daily moral inventory of your side of the street and saying, do I owe anyone an apology? Do I have to amend a circumstance? Do I have to pay back, return? What do I need to do to clean up my side of the street? So that's just kind of a daily quick check. And we should do that anyway. Like, everybody should care enough to say at the end of the day, how'd it go? And is there anything that I need to amend? Now, again, the other person may not be receptive to your apology, but for your side of the street, you know that you've done it. All right, my friends, I don't know if you can relate to any of that. I appreciate being able to share. Of course, I have homework. Tomorrow is Halloween at school. We're having a parade. We're having a party. We're watching a movie. La la la. I'm supposed to dress up. We'll see how it flies. All right, until we talk again, best of all, know that you're blessed.